Hello, my name is Chelsea York. I am the CEO of an energy brokerage called PowerMax Energy. We have been in business since 2003. In addition, I have been brokering with them for 12 years. So with that being said, this year in 2022, it has been a huge increase on people beginning to get solar panels. So as someone who refers to solar companies for the panels, as well as majority of my job includes setting up the buyback programs for those people, there's a lot of questions I get asked repeatedly from my clients about how the process works. So I want to cover some basics. My job specifically is not about solar panels themselves, but we're going to go over a few basics I've picked up along the way from referring people to solar, as well as majority of this video is going to be covering how your buyback program works with your panels. So when you get your panels installed, how that whole process looks, what it costs you, and kind of how to navigate the different programs inside of that. So let's get started. So I want to start from the beginning. I would say the first step, obviously, with going solar or considering going solar is going to be picking out your company. Just because someone came to your house and tried to get a door-to-door salesman, advertise solar, and maybe it's the first time you thought about it and you're kind of thinking you need to stick with that company, I'm not saying don't, but I'm saying do your due diligence on evaluating if that's the company you want to go solar. There's a lot of variables from company to company. I would say one of the things that I find particularly helpful is I like a company that has multiple finance options. I also like a company that has multiple panel options. If they're just selling one brand, I wouldn't recommend doing that company because you're not going to know which panel is actually the right choice for you. The first thing you want to do when picking out the company itself is looking at reviews. It seems obvious, but not everybody does it. You want the higher review. If they're not at least a 4-star, I would say just completely don't do it. Another thing I check when evaluating if it's a good solar company or a bad solar company is how long they've been in business. How long has the sales side been in business? And how long has the install side been in business? I've definitely seen, before we started referring people to panel companies and doing that work for them, I had clients that moved on to solar without my recommendation. I've seen some pretty crazy work for install sides. Like there is a huge difference between someone who knows what they're doing and someone who doesn't know what they're doing. The one thing to know about anyone, whether it's a provider or a solar company, is with energy, there's a lot of money in the market. And so especially with solar panel sales, so you want to be very cautious about who you pick out because those reviews reflect how much truth and how much not truth the company is telling you about their install, for example, their warranty, for example, or how much truth they're telling you about how this process is going to work. So I want to go ahead and debunk a few things during this video on things I have heard solar companies tell people that was not true. There's a couple of determining factors on if solar is going to be a good fit for your home. I would say the one thing I hit the most that's the most inconvenient is if you have a lot of trees around your house and you don't have a place that you can put the panels on the ground away from the trees. That's been the #1 reason why someone can't get solar. Another thing is, ideally, when you're doing solar, you want a credit score that's up in the 600s plus. If you have a lower credit score, there are all workarounds for that, but it does make it a little bit more challenging for you to get the panels because you have to finance the panels, obviously. So what I always tell my clients when we're deciding if solar is a good fit for them or not. Another thing I didn't mention is the way your house faces is another determining factor on how your panels absorb the sun. So certain directions are better than other directions, but they'll go over that with you, assuming that they're a good company. They'll go over that with you in the process. So pretty much if solar's a good fit for you, it means that your solar bill plus your buyback plan are going to be less than what your current bill is with your electric company. If that's not true, then I say don't go solar. And yes, unless you're just insistent upon going green, I totally understand. But with most of my clients, I would say 98%, that's not really the priority, it's saving money. So if that's you, then when they come to your house, they'll tell you exactly how much that bill is gonna be and the difference between what you're paying now to what you'll be paying with them. That's very important. That's really the determining factor for me if it's gonna be a good fit for you or not. One of the things you want to consider when picking out your panels is that if you've picked a solid company with good ratings, you need to trust them and they know more than you do about solar panels. One of the hiccups I've seen in the past is just because a company is the most well-known for the panels, for example, doesn't mean they're the best. I'm sure we all know a few different providers that are the most well-known and incredibly expensive, or not a good company. So just because they're the most well-known, just because you're familiar with the name, doesn't mean that is the panel company you want to have on your house. I would definitely trust your salesman in navigating what kind of panels you actually need that'll benefit you the most. So it does vary from company to company, but generally speaking, it takes 1 to 3 months for solar companies to install your panels. I would encourage you, don't have their timeline for how long it takes to install determine a 30-year choice, because you're picking out your company to the best of your ability. So if one company can install a month sooner, I would not recommend over a month. You have to evaluate the situation. You're making a long-term commitment. Don't worry if your solar panel company has to take 3 months to install. And it's almost better because, hear me out, why do they need that much time to install? It means that they're very busy, which means they're doing well as a company, which means they're probably a good company. So I've had a few people that get a little squirrely. In the summertime, it's the peak time for solar installs, and they'll be upset because it's gonna be a 3-month install. And I'm like, look, it's worth it. It's worth the wait to get the company that you want instead of the companies that's a little bit quicker when this is literally several decades we're committing to these panels. Okay, so one of the things I wanna debunk. There are some solar companies that basically tell you once you have your solar panel bill, you will no longer have an electric bill because now you're gonna be paying your solar panel bill instead. To a degree that's true, and to a degree it's also not true. Now here's how it's not true. No matter what, you have to have a provider tracking your usage, what you're pulling from the grid. Like at night, for example, your panels are not running, so the kilowatts are coming straight from the grid and you're having to pay for those. Now, in theory, if you're producing at 100%, which means 100% of your yearly power is coming from your panels, then the only kilowatts you should be pulling from the grid for most months is going to be at night because your panels aren't being used. Now, if you're at 100%, again, for this example, during the day, you're gonna be overproducing the amount of kilowatts you're going to need for those evening hours. So that appears on your bill as a credit. So you're gonna have your debit for all the kilowatts coming from the grid, and in that charge, you're gonna be paying your energy fee, how much your energy costs, and your delivery fee, how much the delivery fee goes to your metering company. So Encore, AEP, TNMP, for example. So those are the things you're gonna be paying from the stuff coming from the grid. Now, you're also gonna get, each company has a different price on what you're going to be getting as the credit. This is one of the things I have to navigate like crazy because it matters. So some companies are what they call 1-for-1. So whatever your energy cost is the same coming from the grid as it is going to the grid. So let's say you're at, 12 cents a kilowatt on the energy side. So then it's 12 cents a kilowatt for all the kilowatts that you sent to the grid, 12 cents a kilowatt for what you pulled from the grid. So nighttime kilowatts versus your overproduction during the day. So it's gonna be the exact same. There are other people that do it differently. So some companies do it wholesale. So what that means is whatever the price per kilowatt, I think this year it's somewhere around 4 cents a kilowatt is the wholesale cost for what you're sending back to the grid. So that means your credits are gonna be lower. So there's a lot of math that goes into the process of figuring it out. Another problem that I don't really think is fair that we've had this year, a lot of companies that were not used to doing buyback plans have began doing buyback plans, but they're new to it. The reason why they began doing buyback plans is because solar has become so popular. However, some of them are terrible plans. So one of the things I don't appreciate that a lot of companies do is they have a cap for your bill. So let's say it's the fall time. Fall and spring are usually the lowest usage in Texas. Summer and winter are usually the highest usage in Texas. Summer usually being the most, but it depends on from the house. So with that being said, generally, if you're producing at 100%, you're going to have a credit on your bills for the fall and the spring from your overproduction. So let's say you have a positive balance of $25 for the month that you need to use in the winter and summer when your usage is higher. Well, there are some companies that say, oh, you had a positive balance of $25. However, we're not going to give you that. That is now ours, so your bill is zero. So you have no credits to carry over when you need them. I don't personally like that. It's kind of like legally stealing, if you will. So you have to be very careful on looking if there's a cap where the months can roll over or not, because it really is right now in 2022, it's kind of a 50-50 percentile as to who does that and who does not do that. Another thing you want to keep in mind when you're looking at solar plans for the buyback is that base charges apply to all companies that I've seen so far in the market. Generally speaking, they're between $10 and $20. So I try to get that base charge as low as possible so that that's even less money flying out of your pocket for the year, obviously. So $10 to $20 is the average. I have some providers that are like $4 for the base charge on a buyback program. So the reason why doing a buyback plan is so important is because if you're on a regular plan, you can do that with solar panels. However, all of your overproduction is not going to be tracked at all. So what that means is every month, all your overproduction isn't going to appear on the bill. They just pocket it because they're not tracking it because you're not on the right kind of plan. So you're going to lose a lot of money doing that. You need to break your contract with your current provider to get onto the proper plan so that you're using your panels to the best of your ability. With that being said, if you tell the company ahead of time, and this is the panel install company, they will pay for, and by panel install company, I mean the company that you sold with, the one that you're buying panels from. They'll pay for your early termination fee if you mention it. So you need to tell them, hey, my early termination fee is going to be blank. I need you to cover that because you don't really want it to come out of your pocket. A lot of people ask me the appropriate time to order your buyback program. I recommend to go ahead and order it for the day that you go to install. A lot of clients will call me the day that the people are there installing to set up the buyback plan. So you want to go ahead and order it for that day. It'll move over. When your panels get installed, there's also an inspection process. So your metering company will come out and do the inspection. They also switch out your meter for a buyback meter, so it's tracking the two different directions, stuff like that. So then they come out, the final step after install is the inspection, and then you're complete and everything's rocking and rolling. As I mentioned previously, the one type of kilowatts that the provider, the Champion, Reliant, TXU, the provider, does not track is the kilowatts coming straight from your panels. So those type of kilowatts, so during the day when your panels are running, the first place your house is going to access for energy is going to be your solar panels. All of those kilowatts are completely free to you. You don't pay delivery on them, you don't pay energy on them, it's free. That's your power. So the only time that you're gonna see kilowatts appear on the bill, as we kind of already touched on earlier, is anything coming from the grid at night, for example. Anything coming from the grid is gonna be on the bill as a debit, and then anything going to the grid for overproduction is going to appear as a credit on the bill, and that's the only two things you'll see. So you'll notice all of a sudden, once you're on your buyback plan, your kilowatts seem crazy low because you're using your panels. So on the ones coming from the grid, with most providers, you're going to be paying energy and delivery, and then the ones going to the grid, you're going to be receiving the energy cost. And again, you want to try to shoot for a company that's one for one, but it does kind of vary person to person on what the best deal is for them. I am currently in November of 2022, so all this information is based on this year. I know we're going to see some changes through the market, both on the solar and install side and on the buyback plans as the years go by. I will try to include a pinned comment with any changes that happen based on what I am telling you. With that being said, I think we all know this year and for the last little bit, we've had a tax break for anyone going solar. It's 26% that comes back to you. So that is something to consider when going solar. We've been in business since 2003 setting regular programs. This summer alone, I've broken more solar contracts than I have probably set in 12 years. So with that being said, because solar is becoming so popular, one of the hiccups that we noticed is even as brokers, we were getting the information on how the buyback plans work, and these are very, very intricately complicated. As is picking the solar panel company. There's so many details that go into solar. So if you would like to utilize our months of research and our years of experience to help navigate you, whether you're on a buyback plan and you're evaluating if it's the right one for you, or if you're needing to set a buyback plan, or if you're needing to pick out a solar company, please reach out to us. I'm going to include our number and contact information. We would be more than happy to help you get exactly what you want out of your solar panels. You can also reach out if you have any random questions, and have a great day. Thank you so much for watching.